This training can't cover all the components of social skills, but it will cover some important ones that apply to all of us. The first one is self-regulation. This is the ability to manage your emotions and behavior in relation to the demands of a particular situation. Self-regulation requires at least a minimum ability to adjust to changes in routine or expectations and adapt to unexpected developments. Social communication refers to both verbal and nonverbal behaviors that include conversations, body language, and facial expressions. Social communication is both what we say and how we say it. Perspective taking involves the ability to understand that someone else may have thoughts, ideas, or feelings about a particular situation that are different from your own. Often this involves understanding that someone's history and past experiences are different in important ways. This helps us develop realistic expectations and respond appropriately to other people. When interacting with those around us, we frequently encounter various problems. Problem solving involves several steps, including identifying a problem, seeking different options to resolve the problem, then selecting and implementing one of the solutions. In addition to these basic components, there are other components of social skills that are more closely related to the age of the individual, such as social play or work-related social skills. The age related to each of these components varies depending on the individual's skills, interests, and activities. Upper elementary or teenage children might be ready to learn some of the work-related social skills, such as asking for help, accepting feedback, or asking for clarification. Similarly, elementary-age children might still need to learn some social play skills. Of course, there are more pieces to the social skills puzzle than we can cover in this lesson, but these are some of the key pieces to consider when thinking about social skills for your child. The first step in helping your child to develop social skills is to identify which skills you should teach. As Lawrence Peter said, if you don't know where you are going, you will probably end up somewhere else. While there are many different commercially available social skills assessments and curriculums on the market, the best way to begin to assess your child's need for intervention is by simply observing him. Observe how he responds in different social situations. During your observations, consider each of the components we just talked about and make a list of your child's strengths and weaknesses in each area. Determine how your child self-regulates. Make note of how he responds to different or difficult situations. Is he able to adapt his behavior to be appropriate to the situation? How does he handle frustration? Can he adapt to changes in his routine or schedule without engaging in challenging behavior? Does he demonstrate impulse control when there's something he really wants or something he really wants to avoid? During your child's everyday interactions, observe how he communicates with others. Does your child use spoken words, sign language, a communication app, or other alternative methods of communicating? Can he adjust his communication to the person he's speaking to or to the situation? Does he follow the basic rules of communication, such as taking turns, staying on topic, or using gestures? When observing your child, notice how he responds to the reactions of others. Does he demonstrate an understanding that even if he can't see you, you might be able to see him? Can he identify the emotions of others and respond with understanding and empathy? Does he predict what others will do based on how they have responded in similar situations in the past, or based on his understanding of that person's experience? Take note of how your child responds when he encounters a problem. Is he able to identify the problem and look for alternatives? Can he choose one of the alternatives and implement it to solve the problem? He doesn't need to explain what he's doing. You can watch his behavior to see how he responds when encountering a problem. For example, if he tries to turn the iPad on but it doesn't come on, does he try to plug it in or find another way to solve the problem? Play is a complex topic in that play itself is somewhat hard to define. We may have a notion that play involves some sort of toy, but when you think about imaginative play, the child doesn't even need a prop to carry out an imaginary scenario. Play can then be assumed to involve some sort of enjoyable activity with no real objective imposed from the outside. Social play includes at least two people. How does your child play with his peers? Can he engage in at least a few different activities that his peers might be interested in? Does he take turns when needed? Can he join peers that are already engaged in play without disrupting the activity? There is a growing understanding of social skills necessary to experience success in a job. Your child does not need to have a job to begin learning these important skills. Many of these skills are appropriate to introduce in middle or high school depending on the skills, interests, and activities of your child. Watch your child to see how he responds in situations he might encounter in a job. How does he respond to feedback? Does he ask for specific help when needed? Can he ask you to clarify instructions if he doesn't understand what you want him to do? For example, if you ask him to take out the garbage, but there are no more garbage bags to replace the one he takes out, what does he do? Before you get started teaching skills, you must know which skills to teach. Make a list from your observations of the skills your child needs to learn. From this list, consider which skills lead to more complex skills or will have the biggest impact on his life. Next, consider which of these skills you're likely to be most effective in teaching. If your child communicates well, ask him to help decide which skills he thinks are most important to him. Which skills does he want to learn? Your child likely doesn't know which skills are important, but you can offer choices. For example, if your child is likely to be able to participate in a conversation about social skills, you can say something like, The other day you said you wished Johnny would play with you. I want to help you make friends. Do you want to practice talking to other kids or understanding how Johnny sees things? Which one do you think would be more important? While the list of possible goals is endless and depends on your child's needs, here are some examples for you to think about. Your child might need help so that he listens when others speak, including looking in the direction of the person speaking, uses on-topic language, responds to peer initiations, initiates conversations with peers, initiates activities with peers, keeps conversations with peers going, joins group activities, terminates interactions appropriately, compliments others, provides assistance to peers, follows rules when playing games with others, compromises with peers, responds to teasing, accepts constructive criticism or correction from others, appropriately stands up for his rights or expresses his feelings, appropriately questions rules that may be unfair. Whatever goals you choose, make sure they benefit your child, not anyone else. There are several behaviors that parents and professionals have routinely attempted to change in the past that we now recognize as simply a part of the individual and not actually a problem. As we are learning more about autism, we need to make sure the goals we choose are in the child's best interests. Early on, social skills training focused on eye contact. Now many autistic adults speak out against teaching autistics to maintain eye contact. Watch this video by Mary, an autistic registered behavior technician, as she talks about eye contact.
For a lot of our friends, and not all of them, but for a lot of us, it can be very difficult to maintain eye contact, and especially to maintain eye contact while trying to listen and process information. So if you are demanding eye contact from someone, you need to respect the fact that they may not have the ability to pay full attention to everything you're trying to tell them when you're doing that. It can be very hard and almost painful to try to sustain eye contact for too long, even with people that mean the world to me. But I really, when you're looking for those sort of things, would be paying more attention to body orientation, the fact that they're in your general direction and engaged. So maybe they're flapping, maybe they're looking, at a light on the ceiling. But if they're nodding, if they're answering questions, if you're talking and asking questions, that's really what you should be looking for affirmation of processing in comparison to looking for just eye contact. Because we get trained to do eye contact most of the time. A lot of us have been, and that can be kind of traumatizing to some people to different degrees depending on the situations that they went through. But you really should be aware that sometimes that skill that doesn't seem like a lot to a lot of neurotypicals can be near devastating to some of us.
Many autistic children and adults engage in stereotypies as a means of self-regulation. Stereotypies are the repetitive movements or vocalizations that are commonly associated with autism. This might include hand flapping, rocking, humming, or a wide variety of other behaviors. In this next video, Mary talks about stereotypies and their value to autistics.
Stimming and self-regulation. So stimming refers to stimulatory behaviors. Most, if not every, person engages in them at some point and generally throughout their entire lives. All behaviors, serve a function. These self-stimulatory behaviors, their general function is for comfort or regulation of the body. For some people, it just helps to calm the brain to be doing something physical. So a very common misconception about self-stimulatory behavior, especially those more loud or obnoxious ones that people tend to see less in adults. So those things like flapping, spinning, the oral ones, those unfortunately come across as an annoyance. If it takes me flapping or spinning in order to understand what you're saying to me, then I'm going to do that because that's more important, because to me, I know that the goal is, if you're talking to me, is to communicate with me. So if I need to flap to be able to do that, I'm going to continue to do that.
Avoid targeting these behaviors as part of teaching social skills. Remember that your child may avoid eye contact, engage in stereotypies as a way of managing sensory input from the world around him. If his peers don't understand or are bothered by this, educate them about why they are important. Most children, once they understand the behavior, are quite accepting and will even join the autistic child as part of play.